Record. Hi, everybody. This is Barb with Pet Subscription Boxes. And the dogs are locked up today, so my cat Storm has decided she's going to nap on me while we're doing this. So today we are talking with Erin Lynes from Enrichment Labs. She'll give you a quick overview of her skills and everything in a second, but she's going to be talking about senior enrichment for dogs. There will be a Q&A at the end, so just save your questions or type them in the chat and she will get to them at the end. So take it away, Erin.
All right, thanks so much for having me, Barb. I'm very excited to talk to you and all your subscribers today about senior dogs and enrichment and all the cool things we can do for them specifically. So to start out, my name is Erin Lynes. I live in Quesnel, BC with a large troop of Labradors. 5 of them are senior dogs right now. So I'm living the life of senior dog mom. The youngest senior is 11 and the oldest one is just about 14. So that's the age range that I've got. But senior dogs can be anything from 7 years old on up, depending on the size of the dog. So I'm a Karen Pryor Academy certified training partner and a family dog mediator by training. And of course, as Barb said, I'm a dog breeder and train for dog sports and all kinds of other things here in Quesnel. So to get started on our topic about senior dog enrichment, I think it probably helps to talk a little bit about what makes seniors different from other dogs and how we can adjust things to give them the best life. So probably you're familiar with socialization for puppies and how it's really important that they have good experiences when they're young so that later on they're not afraid of new things. And what happens is that socialization process wires the brain and the little puppy's brain so that they make these positive connections. And they're like, oh, I saw a truck and it was fine. My mom gave me a cookie. That's a positive association. I saw this thing in the house that fell down and made a big noise, but then I got to play with my mom and that was a good thing. So that noise was rewired in there positively. And we try and do that when their brains are really small and mushy so that they have all these positive associations in there. But as they get older, just like your body cells, your skin cells shed off as you grow and stuff, brain cells change too. So the connections that puppies make when they're young get rewired, and it happens at a couple specific ages. So we always see a bit of a rewiring right around 5 months of age in a lot of puppies. And that's sometimes where we start to see fears from things we did socialize them to. And we're like, what the heck? I thought you had a positive association. So there's a little bit of rewiring that goes on there. And then there's a little bit of rewiring that goes on when they become sort of mentally mature, maybe around 2 or 3 years old, depending on the size of the dog, maybe a little younger for small breeds. And then we start to see another brain pruning start to happen when they are senior dogs. And this one can come on a little bit more subtly. So it's not usually like with puppies where you wake up one day and they're like, plastic bags. It doesn't usually happen quite so suddenly. But what you might see is your dog starts to be a little bit nervous when maybe when the microwave beeper goes off, something like that. They're starting to notice little sounds that are everyday sounds. Sound sensitivity is one of the ways that you really start to see these results of the brain pruning, the senior brain pruning. Other things that can happen are they can become a little more worried about surfaces. So sometimes dogs that are totally fine on like noisy flooring or slippery flooring, suddenly they're starting to get a little bit more worried. Their general needs as senior dogs change a little bit too. So of course, the older you live, the more your risk factors go up for medical things and aches and pains, and even simple things like cracked teeth or, dental problems, stuff like that. And that affects how they perceive the world and also the things they can do. So if you're compensating for a dog who's got really bad arthritis, they're not going to be able to go out on 5-mile walks anymore. You're going to have to find other ways to exercise them and train them and all that kind of stuff. So senior enrichment is really all about sort of reprogramming how you can make a quality life for your dog considering how their brain is repruning and how their body is behaving to medical issues and aging in general and that sort of thing. So that's just sort of an overview of why you might need to make some changes, or you might see some changes in your senior dog that affect how they interact, even in simple day-to-day home life type stuff. So as far as enrichment goes, what can you do with senior dogs? Well, there are some preventative type things that you can do to help. As I mentioned, sound sensitivities are a common thing that show up as a dog gets older for what appears to be no reason. But you can actually help prevent that, or help keep it from progressing to the point where your dog is scared of all noises with simple enrichment activities at home. So even before your dog starts to show any signs of nervousness about different things, you can play games with your dogs where they associate noise with positive things. So I know, Barb, in one of the Clever Canine boxes, you had a sort of a musical theme, like relaxation stuff. That's a really good thing to do. So exposing them to like gentle, novel noises that help them relax. That's one way that you can help senior dogs. Just sort of keeping that part of their brain that has sound perception going strong. And then the other way is this method of making these positive associations through noises that are gentle but similar to possible scary noises, so that you're sort of rebuilding. It's almost like a re-socialization for your middle-aged and senior dogs. So some common things that dogs do become worried about that we can use enrichment practices to protect against are household noises, beeping for some reason, microwave beeping. Of course, the smoke detector beeping is one that freaks them out, especially when they're older. Different things like that, as well as environmental and especially weather-related noises. So thunder, wind, booming, trees waving in the wind kind of stuff. That stuff, there must be some part of their inner being that knows to be afraid of that, but it's until they get older, all that early socialization kind of cancels it out. So if we don't continue to keep making positive associations with that stuff, that's when you're going to start to see those fears. So enrichment games where you present a gentle noise and then a positive outcome, really important for senior dogs. And the idea is that you never really want to see a fear response. So you're not really looking for sounds that will trigger fear so that you can work on them. You just want to be sort of building back that library of things that you can do and present your dog, so that hopefully that part of their brain system doesn't really prune out. They still keep all that confidence, all those associations they made. So if your dog already does have some sensitivities or worries regarding sounds and that sort of things, there are things that you can do to help mitigate that a little bit too. And we often don't think about these things as enrichment, but they really are, because they're helping to meet your dog's needs of feeling safe and secure in their own environment. It's really a sad thing if a dog is fearful in their own home, right? That should be the one place where they at least feel safe from all things. So if your dog does worry about thunder, fireworks, maybe windy nights and stuff like that, having some sort of background noise within your home to keep them from focusing on the scary noise so much is really helpful. And it helps if that white noise is present at times other than when the scary thing is present. So you wouldn't want to just wait till 4th of July fireworks and then turn on the fan, because pretty soon they're going to see you reaching for the fan and they're going to go, oh crap, this must be fireworks day. I don't want that. So you want to be able to condition them to those white noise, like the classical music is a good one. There's different programs on TV, dog calm channels and stuff like that you can use that kind of play a little bit of background noise. Cartoons are actually pretty good if you want to keep that playing. Sometimes the radio, but a really good one too, on top of the things that you can actually hear, is just to have a simple fan blowing in the room. So if your dog is crated or sleeps on the bed or something like that, you would position the fan not so that it's blowing directly at the dog, but so that it's blowing at a wall closest to wherever the noise is coming from. So if this is my exterior wall of my house and it's windy outside, if I point the fan at that wall, the fan blows air and it kind of bounces over here and bounces over there and bounces over there. And it sort of mitigates that a little bit for the dog. So it feels a little safer to the dog. So we're using this management and enrichment tactic to help them feel more secure. And that's a really basic need that senior dogs need, and fairly easy to do if you can think about things like that in advance. The key really is just to make sure that you are using those practices at times other than when it's definitely going to be scary, so that they don't make that association. So safety and security in general are needs that are a little trickier for older dogs, because as we talked about before, how their body starts to feel more aches and pains. Maybe they don't move as well as they used to. So it makes it harder. The things that you might have used to do for activity, physical exercise, and training games, maybe they're not really well suited for your dog anymore. Like your flat out agility training is probably not the best thing for a dog that's like got bilateral elbow dysplasia and can barely walk, right? So we've got to think of new activities and things like that for them. So respecting limits of pain and mobility are really important. And there's lots of things we can do as far as changing those outlets for mental and physical stimulation if you're a little bit creative. So conditioning exercises that you can do to help keep your dog strong can be done in a very small area. They can be done basically in all weather in your house. So you can train your dog to have really good posture, sitting nice and straight. And if you ever feel like trying this yourself, it's a lot harder than you think. You're like, well, I sit in this computer chair all day long and this is what I do. But try doing it with really good posture and see how long you can hold that. That's the kind of conditioning exercises we can help do for our senior dogs. Sitting is a functional exercise. You're not gonna harm them by asking them to sit if that's something they already do, but we can build up the duration and really focus on the quality of their sit, so that they're using all the muscles that are meant to be used to hold them up in a sit position versus slouching over like that. This wouldn't be good conditioning training. You're not going to see the same effects. They're probably not going to be tired, and they're probably going to be a little more sore after that than beforehand. So focusing your conditioning training on posture and working within your dog's limits are really good ways to help with their physical enrichment needs. And I do like that kind of training, because especially where we live, we have like 8 months of winter. And even though like right now it's really nice outside as far as winter goes, it's completely ice everywhere. So those poor little dogs of mine, when they go outside and they start scampering all over because their legs can't stay under them, that's the opposite of good exercise for them. And we're trying to minimize that as much as possible. So on that note, traction is an area where we can help our older dogs feel safer and stay more physically sound. So slipping is always an injury risk, whether you're a 2-legger or a 4-legger. And if you have any part of your body that is compromised, you will probably know for yourself that if you're slipping around on ice or slippery floors, that it actually hurts. Even if you don't fall or you don't pull a muscle, there's pain associated with that sort of instability. Myself, I have bad knees. So I know as soon as I go outside, that little bit of instability on the ice, if I don't have my ice cleats on or I'm not well prepared, the next day I will remember that I was walking on ice. It will hurt. And older dogs, I feel, are a lot more likely to be experiencing those same things. So if you've got an older dog, he's got a little bit of arthritis and he's slipping around on the ice outside, we don't want that. The really tricky thing is that you can also have traction issues inside your house. So one of the ways you could help meet your dog's needs and keep them from being fearful or hurting themselves are making sure that the areas where they spend the most time have really good traction. So putting traction matting down, it can be something as simple as yoga mats will work, or I use like a fleece matting with a non-slip matting. There's different floor mats you can get from your local, general stores. That kind of stuff all works so that they don't have to scamper on slippery floors. So improving the traction that way is one option. The other option is addressing the dog's foot itself. So sometimes we can't possibly cover all the areas in our house in good traction. This is why we ripped out all the carpet in the first place, right? So if you can't completely manage all the traction on the floor itself, you can try little traction booties. There are little grippy things that you can adhere right to your dog's feet that are non-toxic. Those are helpful to provide traction. There are some sprays and waxes that you can use. They don't last super long and they won't stay on once your dog goes outside. So that's a bit of an issue. And there's also little nail cap things that you can glue on that they're rubbery and they help with traction on slippery floors. But related to that, keeping your dog's nails trimmed and that those little fur, Grinch furs that come under their feet is another way to help with traction so that they're not too worried or not slipping on floors. So long nails never help with indoor traction. So if you're not sure the right length, what you are looking for are nails that do not click when they walk on hardwood floors. So those are a couple of ways that we can help our dogs feel a little bit safer and more secure in our homes, which means that they're going to walk around more, they're going to investigate things a little more, and they're going to be more likely to play the different games and stuff that we want to play. So a dog that is feeling safe in their own home is going to be a little more interactive, and that's definitely something we want to do for our dogs. Senior dogs do tend to sleep more, and that's natural to a certain point, but we also don't want their whole day to be about napping, and then they wake up and they eat, and then they go back to bed, and then they sleep again. They're just definitely not getting enough exercise or mental stimulation when that happens. So you might have to be a little bit creative with your enrichment opportunities to help encourage them to stay awake and to find out interesting things to do so that they want to stay awake and choose that over napping. So a couple different ways to do this. Obviously, the most popular one and probably the easiest one are to find interactive ways to feed your dog. So with senior dogs, if you are dealing with dental issues and things, this might have already changed how you have to feed them. Maybe they can't eat as crunchy of food as they used to be able to eat. If you feed raw food, maybe you've had to switch to feeding a completely ground food. But one thing we do know about dogs and their natural behaviors, which is what we're interested with in enrichment, is they are designed to sort of rip and tear and chew food. They're meant to sniff it out and then devour it that way. And our modern feeding practices don't really allow them to express that. When we put kibble in a bowl, they don't get to smell for it. They don't get to search for it. They barely chew it in most cases. I have labs, so I don't think they've ever chewed a piece of kibble. Barb knows what I'm talking about. So there's different ways you can address this. And it depends on where your dog is at with their nutritional needs and how their teeth are and all those kind of things. But a couple different ways that you can ensure that they spend a little more time eating, which makes it more interesting and is more likely to produce all the benefits of chewing, even if your dog has no teeth. Something like a licky mat is really good. So you could put, if they have canned food or raw food, or even if you're feeding kibble, if you moisten it and smush it into one of these little silicone mats and freeze it. This one's grungy because somebody just finished having a snack. You can freeze that so that for their next meal, they have to work and lick at every little crevice to get the food out. So this was one that I got from Clever Canine, and it's a nice size. It holds not quite a meal worth of food, but you can smush quite a bit in there. So I can get usually about half an hour to 40 minutes of licking if I've frozen this in there. What you might find, your senior dog might not have enough stamina to finish that. So maybe you start a little smaller and just see how long it takes it. We don't want them to give up on it if it's too hard, but we do want them to have to spend a little time checking out for their food. If you want it to be looking at ways that you can help them with more of the foraging part, sniffing and searching, there's lots of really easy ways to do that. So one of the easiest ways is if you do feed kibble, is just to chuck some kibble out in the snow or the grass and they go look for it. So that's one way. With our senior dogs, one thing I do make note of is if your dog has any history of neck or back or front end pain, then leaning over to smell right at ground level can be painful. So you might have to limit how much you do of that, or change your setup so that when they're sniffing or licking, so that their head is a little bit higher, so that they're not leaning forward so much. You don't want to end up with a sore dog while you're making their life fun. But there are other options too. So this is one that Shelby really likes, where the little puzzle pieces move. You can hide their little yums in there and they sneak them around like this and have to solve the puzzle. I like those feeding options. They're really nice for dogs, even dogs who don't have much left for teeth. So if they are not going to be able to do too much chewing, they can still search for their food and they can figure it out that way. And then of course, there's sort of the old standards where you can stuff Kongs and different, you know, rubbery food shaped toys with things like that. So if your dog isn't used to already eating that way, I suggest not putting a full meal into a food toy. Just start with a few little bits so that they can sniff around, eat it, lick it, whatever they got to do, and have a quick finish, and hopefully be like, hey, that was pretty fun. I'd like to do that again tomorrow, and build up the time slowly. Just because you do want it to be fun, you want it to be something that they continue with, and you want to make sure that they're not missing out on part of their calories for the day because they got too tired or they got too hard. And it will be a bit of physical exercise on this stuff when they first get started. So it's surprising. I mean, you can't just stop walking your dog because you give them a licky mat, but it will cause them to have some exertion. And a lot of times my little dogs are panting by the time they're done with the food toy, and they look very satisfied about it, but it does work up a little bit of, you know, they burned a few calories in the process. So that's always good for them too. So if your dog does still have enough teeth to do some chewing, and that's an option, then finding safe chews is definitely something that you want to do too. And so when puppies are young, we often look for like these tough chews that are going to last them, because they're going to chew so much. They're going to chew all the time. We get this big variety of chews. And as they get older, they get trained not to chew destructively. And a lot of times we tend not to keep providing them chews anymore because they don't chew our shoes anymore. And through training, we kind of lose the idea that dogs actually need to consume food this way. So as long as your senior dog is able to, you know, physically chew the things you're providing, go back to giving them chews. Give them a variety of chews. I like that in the boxes that I get from you, Barb, there's always a variety. So some months there's stuff that's more durable, and some it's a little bit easier to chew. You don't have to have chewing things that take like a month to chew. Sometimes that's nice, and for certain dogs that's great if you don't have to keep reinvesting in chew stuff. But other times, if they can get like 5 or 6 minutes out of a good crunchy chew, that's really meeting their needs for getting to do that chewing. So experiment with different things and see what they like and what they will actually work on, because that is good mental health, and it's good for them physically too. So then the last little thing that I wanted to talk about really quick was husbandry, health and hygiene needs for our senior dogs. So as they get older, they tend to sometimes need medication, or they'll need frequent vet visits. Maybe they've got something going on and they need injections, or they've got to be checkups. So training your dog for husbandry procedures, cooperative care type stuff, so that you can get your dog to enjoy and participate when they need medical care or grooming, is a really good thing to do. So if your dog, I know we got lots of people in this group that have dogs who do sports, and at a certain point they retire from sports, and there might be like that thing, like, what can I do with my dog? We're not doing agility anymore. We've stopped dog driving. We're doing this or that. You can make a bit of a game out of training for husbandry or cooperative care aspects. So teaching your dog to give you the paw and let you hold it and inspect all their little claws and between their toes and all that kind of stuff. This can be a regular training session, something that you do at a certain time every day that becomes part of their pattern that they look forward to. And that pattern helps build their confidence around the procedures, as well as obviously, you know, pairing it with positive reinforcement. So if you're making these procedures pleasant, they're going to be more fun for your dog, more fun for you, less stress for everybody, and it's more likely that you're going to be able to get things done. So one that I always think about pre-training for senior dogs, even if your dog doesn't need to take any pills yet, at some point they probably will, even if it's just temporary for an infection or something like that. Having a dog that will take pills easily is so nice. So you don't have to be wrestling them to poking pills down their throat, or, you know, trying to sneak it into their food, and they'll figure that out in about 10 seconds flat. So one of the things you can do, this is one of my favorite games that I play. I call it This One, That One. And I start by, it's a procedure I use to teach my dogs to take medication, just like a cookie. So there's you know, just a disclaimer, I do have labs, so it's probably cheating a little bit because they eat a lot of things anyway. But even labs, if they know you're giving them medication and they haven't had pre-training, they'll usually spit stuff out. So I know it works on them.